How can I start a business when I'm not sure what to do? Do you feel guilty making profit? Guilty about taking days off? Is 32 years old too old to start a business? Welcome along to a Q&A with a small business owner. If we're meeting for the first time, my name's David Winter. I run Affinity Media Group here in the UK. Our main business is a video agency, but around that and outside of that, we are trying our best to build YouTube channels, content and brands online. So with that, we've dug out some most frequently asked questions online around all things business, marketing and growing a content and brand. I'm going to answer them as best and honestly as I can. Some around business, around hiring, employing, some around marketing, and some around general work-life balance as well. So we're going to jump straight into it. Let's see how we get on. Right, a great place to start. How can I start a business when I'm not sure what to do? So I think a lot of people will see other people in business. That's one of the reasons that they decide they want to start one. It may have been suggested to them, certainly not within the school system, but that's another conversation. Or they may have seen someone turning a passion into a profit, or kind of heard that phrase and thought, can I actually monetize gaming, for example, or football, or whatever it might be, my passion, my interest, can I turn that into profit? And that's normally the first few sort of conversations or kind of thoughts that people will have. What I wish I had done at the time, because I certainly did decide to turn passion into profit, if you like, with drums and through music, and then finding videography and ultimately starting a business through that. I think you actually want to start looking at business models as a whole. What's an industry or a sector that, yes, you enjoy, you maybe know quite well, have unfair advantages it would be in terms of you have either contacts or you have some information or knowledge or a skill within that. And look at business models. What is it that's actually going to work? And ultimately, what do you want to get out of the business before you start trying to set something up that you're not too sure on? A few things that you will want to look at. One is business models. The other is actual products. And do you have a supply for a start, but do you have a demand for that? What is the target audience? And are they actually likely to buy that product? A little bit of market research there. You also want to look at what do you want to get out of the business? Do you plan to be someone who is, like me, a bit of a workaholic, happy working 60, 70, 80 hours a week for probably not much in return? Or do you actually want a lifestyle business? Do you want maybe just a couple of employees and you can kind of have that laptop lifestyle that so many people are drawn to these days? Which is it that you want? You're going to have to try and work backwards from that, and that will lead you into potentially a sector or at the very least a business model. Remember, most business models are either selling products or they are selling time, i.e. a service-based business like we do with our video agency, or they're going to be actually still essentially selling time but renting something, renting a space, renting a product, renting an inflatable bouncy castle for children's birthdays, for example. Ultimately, you're always either going to be selling a product or time. Everyone wants to go down a subscription, nice, easy business model subscription, Amazon, Netflix, software, something like that. It takes a lot of legwork before you can actually manage that. And so no matter where you're deciding, a lot of thought needs to go into it. So question number 2, what is the first step when deciding to start a business? So apart from the usual stuff of deciding on names and logos and all that kind of boring stuff that, to be honest, people get bogged down with way too easily. As I mentioned in the last question, you kind of want to think about business models. You want to think about where does the business look like in a few years' time, at the very least, in 5 years' time, in 10 years' time, and what do you want it to look like when it's, quote, finished? Most businesses will never feel like they are finished, but what do you want to work towards as the ideal scenario for your business? That is something I wish I'd took the first step of doing when I decided to start Winter Media. I, for about 5-6 years, decided or thought, I don't really want employees. I just want to be a freelancer. I'd rather graft as many hours as I possibly can and get paid for those hours and live what I thought was a free, flexible life, which hopefully made quite a bit of money. Sadly, I'd done none of them. And now I'm realizing we actually want to build a team. We want people that can build the foundations of a business, but also the business to have some actual value. Not only do you realize that the biggest businesses out there were not built by one person the entire way through, started by one person, not built by one person. That for me, I wish was the first step I took in business, not an actual task, not a move forward, let's do this, get this client, do this work. I actually wish I just sat and wrote all of this out, maybe filled a whiteboard with ideas and what I want things to look like. That will give you a much better answer for the approaches and the steps that you take in business. If you're setting up from scratch and don't know the sector or industry or business model you're going to go for, it will answer that also. And it will also answer you whether or not it's worth 5 years of absolute carnage and stress and no social life, because that is what I'm only just getting out the other side of. Question number 3 here is, do you feel guilty making profit, or what to do if you feel guilty making profit? Now, for a lot of people, we will look at profit as thinking that that's what the business is keeping, but most of the time that's actually gross profit. So if we're looking at we've bought a product for £10 and we're selling it for 50, we're looking at that as a 5x multiple. Realistically, you want to be selling products, for example, at least double the price, so 50% margin, because your net costs are so high, especially in a product-based business, but in most businesses. And as you grow, we're certainly finding that now. We might turn, for example, 200,000, we've probably got about 150 to 160,000 of expenses and net operating costs. So as much as we can look and say it's cost, let's say £2,000 to make a video, £3,000, £5,000 to make a video, you might look at 60 seconds video and go, £5,000 for that, that's a hell of a lot of money, what a good payday that is. But actually it's at the end of the year where all of that matters. So don't feel, first of all, too guilty about making profit. I'm going to assume you're talking about gross profit there. Don't feel too guilty about that. It's actually the end of the year where you want to be looking. And I think people do have a good-ish understanding of businesses needing to make a profit. It's on the very low end of whatever sector or industry that you are in, where you are made to feel guilty for making profit because you're asked to do, for example, in video, so much work for free just to get the exposure or the recommendations or the portfolio. As soon as you start charging as a video creator or as any kind of creative, you really do start to feel that guilt. As your business grows and you start to understand business a little bit better, this was a hard learning curve for me over the past year and a half, maybe 2 years, you do start to realize that those numbers, again, margins need to at least be, gross profit margins, at least 50, 60, maybe 70% in an ideal world, so that you can actually survive a year, never mind make a profit. Question number 4 in this one, still around guilt here, guilty raising prices. What to do when you want to raise your prices, you need to raise your prices. This person actually was talking, I think in their example, about 4xing their prices. So quite a significant increase, depends what they started on, I guess. But I actually went through exactly this when I went from a freelancer to a video agency owner and made my first hire. We've now got a team of 3, and so I actually immediately, from my first hire, had to triple our costs just to be out in the field for a day of filming. That for me felt pretty uncomfortable to do. I was already a freelancer that was probably not undercutting people as in an intentional tactic to get more work, but I was certainly one of the cheaper freelancers out there. I was very busy and incredibly busy with work, which is why I had to hire someone. So there's a lot to be said around that argument, and pricing is something that any business owner can debate till the end of time. But again, you want to be looking at your net profits at the end of the year. You might actually need to quadruple your pricing just to have or maintain a 10% net profit margin at the end of the year. That's something that's really important that a lot of business owners don't think about. And that for me is why I had to do something very similar and triple my costs just for us to be out filming. As a side note, as we go through these questions, you might have your own thoughts and advice for the people asking these questions, as well as other people in the comments. So if you have any advice, any thoughts, any answers, any help that you would like to give, make sure you drop a comment down below. On to the next question. Question number 5, a lot of guilt in this one. What a theme to have as this episode. Guilty about taking days off. I literally could not relate to this question anymore. I actually felt guilty, would you believe it, about taking my girlfriend to the hospital today. She's not been very well, and yet I'm still sat there looking at my phone and the emails and the meetings and everything that I'm missing and feeling pretty guilty. And that's a pretty justified reason not to be at work or doing work. But still, it happens. Business owners, especially those that are owners of a small business or freelancers themselves or still yet to make that first initial hire, there is nobody else that you can share the responsibility with. So for a start, clients, products, everything, turnaround, all falls on you. That is a pretty difficult spot to be in. It is something that is pretty natural for most businesses in the first few years, and that hustle mentality, that cannot switch off mentality, is pretty normal in most business owners and most entrepreneurs. It's kind of that mindset that you can't switch off, or you always want to be creating, or maybe you're just actually excited about work. So don't feel guilty that you feel guilty about taking days off at the same time. What I probably would say is look at where you want to be in a few years' time. Most people would say retiring early, or I only want to work 2 days a week, or I only want to work 4 days a week, or have every other week off. try and implement that as much as you can, or set yourself up for that as much as you can. I soon came to realize not every email needs to be answered straight away. I soon came to realize not every video needs to be edited straight away. Bear in mind, I would always have a video on the edit list, so that for me just meant no days off. I could easily edit on the Thursday, take the Wednesday off, but for me it was, I need to get it done, need to get it turned around. I can kind of justify and say that that worked out well, everybody was happy with quick turnaround times if we stick with that example, but realistically, if it waited another day, was it going to matter? Probably not. Question number 7, this was an interesting one. Clients asking about contractors. So this is a business owner in the creative space that is using freelancers and subcontractors for the work. And this is something that I know very well. I've been those freelancers and subcontractors on a lot of these jobs. And I do think that some kind of clarity and honesty and integrity is needed in a lot of these places. Agencies, for example, will get a freelancer in, say it's £200 to film for the day, £300 to film for the day, and they will charge that out to the client for £1,000, £2,000, £3,000 for an entire day. I've been that freelancer, and I've been that freelancer on a job that has then been asked by the client, so you charge £3,000 a day to be here, and I'm like, no, I'm charging you 150 quid, or I'm charging someone 150 quid, and I'm missing out here somewhere. If you're trying to avoid those conversations, I think that's something in your gut instinct and in your heart telling you you're probably doing something a little bit wrong. I would much rather a video agency, and this is what we do by the way, I would much rather an agency says, we've got some freelancers in, this is their quote, this is their cost, no markup or very little markup. And actually just have the confidence to say, but we charge a fee for managing that, or we're charging a fee for storyboarding all of these ideas, the post-production, putting all of this together. What I notice a lot of agencies do is they mark up on the freelancers to actually cover the insecurities, I think, that they have around charging for their actual services. So my advice on this one was try and have a bit of confidence in what you're actually providing to the client. Make sure that what you are doing, your work, or your work as an agency or business, is actually of value. Everybody can go get a freelancer and then charge them out at 10 times the cost. Is that great business, or is that just ripping people off? Next question here, is 32 years old too old to start a business? Now, I got asked this one a little while ago. The answer quite simply is absolutely not. There are so many business owners, and I'd give loads of previous examples. The founders of KFC, McDonald's, they were in their 40s, 50s, 60s when they set these companies up. And even if you look at most companies, the trajectory of that company growth always seems to be pretty flat for 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And then just that compound effect over time can absolutely skyrocket a business and make all the difference. So do not worry about having to have started 10 years ago, 5 years ago, yesterday, last week. It's the classic case of looking at a stock market and going, if only you had invested in Apple 30 years ago when no one knew the company existed, and you put £10,000, which nobody has in savings, you would have 1.8 million billion trillion in your bank account. It's not the way that the world works. Don't think that you've missed opportunities. Look for the opportunities ahead. Next question, really like this one. How can a potential buyer effectively evaluate the risks and growth opportunities of an existing business? Now, this is not going to be the obvious stuff of look at the sector, although that's obvious that you've got to do that. If you're in automotive, for example, that is very much about to be disrupted or is being disrupted with electric cars. If you're in tech, that's about to be disrupted with AI. We can all take these very simplistic analytical approaches to sectors, but what you actually want to look at is the business itself, the business model for a start, because subscription-based or selling time for money in terms of service-based, as we do with a video agency, different business models will have, I think, peaks and troughs throughout not only the year, but only through as well through decades and through the number of years to come. So try and look at all of that. One of the most effective things that certainly VCs, venture capitalists, will be looking at a business, whether they're investing in it or someone trying to buy it out, is actually the management team in place. So they'll look at the profitability of a business. Let's say easy numbers. They're saying a business will make, let's try and keep easy numbers, 100,000 profit a year. They're doing $1 million in revenue, 100,000 net profit at the end of each year. They know that if they put their money into that, and in 10 years, they've probably banked themselves £1 million. The value of the business, inflation, etc., will all go up as well. But they want to know that they can put money into that without having to do too much work. It is like investing in stocks in some cases. So you want an effective management team that will run the day-to-day of the business. And what you don't want to do when people are buying into businesses is buy yourself a job. So if I was going to, for example, I've talked a lot about one of the next businesses, if I can, will probably be an MOT station or a garage servicing station. I know nothing about cars, so I'm certainly not going to buy myself a job to go work on and fix cars. That would be probably dangerous, to say the least, stupid at best. That is what VCs and people who are going to look to invest into businesses, to buy businesses, are looking at. That's what they're evaluating, is the strength of that management team. So final question for this video, thoughts on an inflatable rental business. Now, throughout some of these questions, we've talked about business models. What is it that actually works, and can you get the business at some point to work without you in it as well? I actually wanted to set up this business, and I sort of talked myself out of it the more that I've learned over the years. I never got round to setting it up, so I never learned the kind of hard way, but certainly with a video agency and other businesses, learned very much the same way. So the problem that you have, to a degree, with an inflatable rental business is that you are, for a start, you're kind of in a race to the bottom. Who will do the cheapest? Parents are often looking for the cheapest prices. Now, you can be very clever in your marketing and kind of what you offer and packages and offers and things like that. However, you're also, for the most part, probably going to not be building that business up with multiple trucks and employees and dropping off and picking up all the inflatables. It's a very difficult business to scale. Can you actually see yourself at one point sat in an office managing that business? Highly unlikely. It is also a difficult space to be in the sense that it is very low barrier to entry. It's why it's difficult to grow. You might have somebody that you're employed for a year or two. If you get to that point, they're probably looking, going, I can do this myself. And then they go set it up themselves, realize how difficult it is. But it's very low barrier to entry. It's why you're always in a race to zero, and learning this certainly through a video agency, very low barrier to entry. Anybody can go buy a camera, either on their phone, little Osmo Pocket, 500 quid, you're in business. And that, a lot of the time in this kind of industry or this sector, is what you're up against. So there we go then, that is our Reddit Q&A for today. Now, I think the last question, or the last couple of questions, we want to focus in on an actual business challenge or a business idea. Give our thoughts on that and a bit of a heads up, if you will. If you have any business ideas that you would like us to review, drop them in the comments. And if you have any questions, of course, that you would like us to answer, please do drop them in the comments as well. This is going to be a brand new channel dedicated to basically my business ventures, so please do subscribe. We've got plenty coming up, as well as plenty of things to look forward to. Hopefully we see you in the next video. Let me know your thoughts overall, and we'll catch you very soon.